this is James's meal for the day. It's actually a couple meals worth of food. There's an Asian salad there, and some egg rolls and celery juice, and I could talk about that a bit more maybe. We're going to be going through a James Patterson Marathon review, and so there's the books that I'll be going through.
So that's about a week's worth of reading.
Yeah. For you, and I thought it was funny because like this one, there's no point in the book where they're on a boat. So
but there's a boat on the front.
Yeah, it's, you know, they just pick these covers out, I don't know, from a stock of covers or something, and they decide, okay, well, so I've taken the stack down so that it doesn't blow all over the place.
Yeah, I think it might blow onto the deck.
Yeah.
All over the place.
James has some honey mustard dip for his egg rolls because he's found he actually likes it. Well, he likes honey mustard with everything.
With almost anything.
So that's what he's having.
Except for eggs, I think that would disgust me. But egg rolls, it's awesome.
And the Asian salad was just, we were given Asian salad in a bag, and I baked some spaghetti squash this morning, and then put some lentils in there, and some steamed broccoli, and then sliced up a little bit of red bell pepper. So, and well, James ate it with the snap peas yesterday too. And I don't know if he wants to eat a snap peas with honey mustard or salad or what. It's there. So, yeah, I just fancied up the Asian salad a little bit. And I'm having some sort of ish chai. I ran out of cardamom pods, so anyway, that's okay. I'll get it later.
For it.
Yeah, it's a bit breezy. So
it's funny because
I lost one. Okay, I'm gonna have to hold them. They're just, it's too breezy for this.
When I turned up 15 minutes ago,
yeah,
it was
breezy.
Totally still.
But okay. So anyway, there we go. I will start with this Elizabeth Lowell, Innocent as Sin, because that's what I started out the stack from. I started reading this one, and you know, I shouldn't have thought much of it because it was published by Avon Fiction, and so I don't know, I didn't think that much, but
What other stuff have they published? I associate it just with garbage, but Avon.
Yeah, makeup.
Romance novels? Oh!
That's what they do.
It's that company?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
they've been doing it for a while.
Yeah. They've been publishing books for a while. And I don't know, I mean, fiction, what does it really matter? Like, I did this, I've done it before, the young personality test. And I did it again recently because I can't remember my whatever. But my thing is IN, what is it? TJ, I think. INTJ. And the N, I couldn't remember what it was because it stands for intuitive. So they don't go by the I in the front, they go by the N. So that's what that was. So that's why I couldn't remember that, and I won't remember it for the next time because it's not the first letter. The other ones are the first letters. But anyway.
No wonder I couldn't figure it out.
And that test, every time I sit there, well, I guess it's because I'm analytical on the, right now, even more, like I'm usually in between the analytical and the amiable. And I have very little of the, so if you, of the aggressive things. I'm really passive, and I'm over in the middle over there. So, but this now, I don't know, since the pandemic, or maybe it's since menopause, I'm not sure, but now I'm on the analytical side of the fence, not the amiable side, but that's fine. But anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, the question of the Young test. So the first question is, do you prefer reading fiction or like comic poetry or the newspaper? And I'm like, do I prefer reading fiction that is advertised as fiction, or do I prefer reading fiction that is advertised as nonfiction? You know, because honestly, the newspaper, I mean, we've had instances where, like, say, when Tornado got put in the newspaper.
Oh my God.
And I mean, they snap a picture that they think, oh, this is going to sell some papers, and they put whatever they want with it so they make up news. And
Should I explain what happened?
it doesn't
Well,
matter.
I'm going to one of these days because
Go
it's
ahead.
important. Okay. Pauline was up in Grand Prairie working that summer. We had a little dog, an adventuresome dog called Tornado. And it was during Whoop Up Days, and they have pancake breakfast. Whoop Up Days is kind of like our stampede. And I wanted to go out and get a bunch of pancake breakfast and to treat Tornado. Give him a big long walk.
Yeah.
Put it all on a...
Because a lot of the time they give out sausages and pancakes. And James wasn't going to eat the sausages, so it became a tradition for James to go out and get pancake breakfast, and then Tornado would get the sausages and James would get the pancakes, right? So dogs love to share dinner with their humans.
Yeah, I try not to eat meat. Sometimes there'd be eggs. Well, I set up a route so I could get the maximum number of pancakes with a minimum amount of walk. There was a lot of walking. Tornado was up to it. He was a
He was very fit. He was
Basset Hound mixed with, what were we figuring? Beagle and a Dachshund. And, Dachshunds and Beagles, I think, are both terriers, are they not? So
high
he's
energy.
more of a terrier personality than a Basset.
Solid muscle. And, well, we didn't feed him sausages very often. It was just a special occasion for... It was... most of the time he ate that signature trout and salmon. That's what he ate. So he ate good dog food.
So I'd hit a couple of places. It's not as though the guy was hungry. And I should say, I think the places I'd hit had eggs. So I got the pancakes, Tornado got the sausages, and guess who got the eggs?
Yeah.
Because he's whining and begging for it. All right. Said already. So we go to the one that was at the a pancake breakfast that was in front of, I think, the Red Cross building. Everyone is there, including the mayor. Well, and the mayor's there. The press is going to be there. Big photo opportunity for the mayor. I like the mayor. Bob Clark. I liked him.
Yeah. But he was outcompeted by a cute little Basset Hound.
Yeah. So what happens is, I'm in a big, long... Well, I turn up. I say, oh, it's a big, long lineup. But we walked a long way. I think the previous one was kind of like by the Herald. The Herald's downtown. And you know where Fleetwood Bottom School is? That's where that Red Cross thing is. It might be a mile away. We walked a mile. Almost built up an appetite, for more, to the point where I started off. So I'm going, I can't have Buddy in the line.
Yeah.
So there was a flagpole away from the lineup. I made sure it was in it was a dappled kind of shade. It wasn't total shade. But it was in the shade. And I tied him up there. Tornado was pretty expressive.
Vocal, yeah.
Vocal.
Basset Hounds are.
Exactly where it was going.
I love the sound of Basset Hounds. They sound like singing to me.
She knew exactly what was happening. Alright, where I was going. So I'm in the lineup, and he's vocalized. And I see that mayor is finished with his shtick. I think he was giving a speech or something like that. Guy, photographer from the Herald, has finished doing, taking the photos, and he's cutting. I'm going, no, please, no. Cutting kitty corner, well, diagonally across the front of the line, which means his path takes him right by Tornado. And Tornado's vocalizing, and I'm going, no, please don't, please don't. And of course, Buddy takes a picture, because I'm telling you, Bob Tarlick's a nice guy, but he's not, what does he look like? Kind of like Elvis Costello, only, a bit more upstream or something like that.
Yeah.
But Tornado was a handsome little guy. I can remember when he was young, I was giving him a walk, and two young women were walking behind us. And Tornado had this little white pointer on his tail, right? And so the one of the women goes, "Nice tail." Goes, "You're lucky I'm old, because otherwise I didn't,
Yeah, you'd have a snappy comeback.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Like, thank you.
I work out. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, he was a handsome little sucker. So they were kind of stalking him, not me, and stuff like that. Handsome. And so I knew it was going to be in the Herald.
Yeah. Front page.
It was front page color.
Yeah.
And I knew what was going to be there. So and I worked on a paper. It was a student paper, but it's the same basic principle. When you come up along with the headlines, that's the last thing you put in there. It's filler. It's to fill out. You put in these stories, and then you're going, okay, we've got stuff left over. So you've got to fill in the headline into that space. Cut lines, which are the captions for photos, are the same thing. You've got a certain amount of stuff for the cut line to explain, or try to explain, or just fill in you're working on a deadline. Those are the last things put in, and it might be 6 o'clock in the morning, and you worked all night. So of course you get all sorts of ridiculous stuff, and it's generally just the technical workers. They're not going to phone up the guy and say, "Hey, what was the situation here with this little basset hound?" But there would have been some basic explanation. So it says something to the effect, here's this poor basset hound suffering while his owner is stuffing his face with pancake breakfast. No, that one had eggs. Dude got eggs, sausage, and I got I put a lot of syrup on it, but I got the pancakes. I wanted the eggs, but I gave them up to this wee little 35-pound basset hound. He wasn't a full-size basset hound. He was mixed with these other things to make him small. They were more controllable. No way. He was the kind of guy that if you took him for a walk,
it had to be a different walk.
It had to be a circle route. It couldn't be a return route.
Or your ankles would be bitten.
Yeah, well, Pauline would be wearing like shorts or a skirt or something like that, and he'd be chewing on her ankles.
Yeah,
he ripped up the kind of like the bottoms of my pants. He'd be chewing on them and saying, "I don't want to be." Yeah. I remember one time walking by Henderson Lake, and that's when I first started noticing it. Henderson Lake, that was a nice walk and stuff like that. I walked him along the same route backwards on the other side of the street, but that wasn't good enough. He knows, they recognize stuff like that. He started chewing on my pant leg, and I'm going, what's going on? It took me a while to realize that he'd do that every time he did the route coming back. So, there it was. And of course, I'm not going to mention who it was, but that same day, I met someone that Pauline knows way better than I do, who's a animal lover of sorts, or rights activist. How would you characterize it? Anyway, she took me to task. How could you do this to this animal? I'm going, what are you talking about? But that's what happens. this is media for you. It's a big long story, but it's not a hairy dog story or whatever the term is. It's the real thing, and that's what was wrong. What was the hairy dog story? Whatever was the story getting fed to people in the media. Yeah, it was awful. When I saw this woman there with the Herald, there.
You knew you were gonna get it.
Oh no! Yeah. I just knew. I knew all the way along the way this story was going to be told.
Yeah.
Right from when I saw. Well, I knew it was going to be misinterpreted when I tied my little buddy up. That's why I tried to make sure it was in the shade, because I knew he'd be vocalizing, right? People do.
Well, and we took him everywhere. Like, we'd tie him up outside the store when we went in, and like we walked everywhere. And we'd tie him up outside the store, and we'd get trouble from people a lot. Like, they'd be like, "Your dog needs water." And it's like we know that we're only going in for 5 minutes, and
this happened one time to me.
Because we carry whatever we buy.
This time it happened to me.
Don't buy very much at a time.
To me with his predecessor, Tournay's predecessor, Copper, big 65-pounder. Yeah. I was going down to a store. How many blocks away? 4 blocks away, something like that. 4 blocks away from here. Yeah. And it was a hot day. I didn't want to take him, but he wanted to come along. So I'm going, okay, I'm going to take him. I know I'm going to the store. I know I'm going to have to tie him up outside. And it's a hot day. And I'm going, oh great. I just hope I don't run into a splinter. Guess what? Yeah. He's outside and he's vocalizing, crying, and they've got the sad eyes. One time one person saw a tornado and they said, "What sad eyes? What a sad," I'm going, no. They look sad, but dude is not sad. So he was vocalizing. When I come out, there's a little container, like a cottage cheese container or something like that, full of water in front of him. And guy wasn't drinking the water. It was full of water. He hadn't even slurped it up.
Yeah.
He wasn't thirsty. I made sure he got some water before we left. But he'd been crying. He wanted to come inside. He wanted me to finish up and come outside. That's what he was crying about. Then what happens is a woman comes storming out of Value Village or whatever it's called. "How dare you leave your dog out here in this broiling heat, thirsting to death?" She had an English accent. Newsflash for you stupid, I'm not going to call you Brits, stupid English people. The sun has set on the English Empire. Well, you're not the boss of us now. Yeah. God, she was awful.
But yeah, Copper was very attached to us. So he always wanted to be, when we were sitting, he had to be touching both of us.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
He was.
He tried to sit on your lap. 65 pounds of
he tried to curl up on there. It didn't work. He was very big.
Get maybe half of himself on
like his head would fit. But he'd try to put his whole body curled up on there, which was cute.
I know. He meant well. And, like we didn't get that.
So he slept in the bed and everything. He was always with us. Everywhere. He was always with us. And we had to, when we went to work, we felt really bad because we couldn't bring him.
I timed it when we got back. He'd cry when we get back.
And he'd be wiping his tears on my lap. My lap would get wet with his tears.
And yes, we're not imagining things. He did cry real tears. Lots of them.
So devastated that we'd left for so long.
And
it was very hard on him.
I finally timed it.
Yeah.
And it was not an extra long one. It was an average cry for him.
Yeah.
7 minutes of crying. I was timing it with my watch. 7 minutes. That's how long it took for him to.
He was such a good guy.
He was a good guy.
Anyway, so I was talking about the fiction and how. So for the first question I choose. The first one I pick fiction because I don't like the newspaper. I don't like reading the newspaper. I don't like listening to the CBC.
Oh my God.
Anyway.
Brad Galloway was in his element.
I have been reading fiction lately, and even stuff like this. But it's not that I really like reading fiction. I like reading good fiction. I like reading poetry a lot. So I prefer reading poetry to reading nonfiction, even nonfiction that's very important, that's very useful, as I like to learn. But I don't like reading the newspaper, so that I picked the poetry one. But anyway, most fiction I think is a total waste of time. And this, like, I can't remember really the stories. If I sat down and I was like, oh, I got to remember what I read in the past week. I mean, I just read this stuff. It'd be hard for me to come up with the storyline because it's so unimportant. And honestly, I think it's written as fast as I read it. So, okay.
Faster. On a typewriter? Just blasting away.
So I wrote for this one, NYTBSer, not with this one, because it says New York Times bestseller. And I think that just means the author, because this is not a good book.
It's actually just so you can have the abbreviation BS.
Yeah.
Bestseller.
Was this something she'd written before she learnt the craft of writing a successful novel and decided to put it to press for a few bucks? Honestly, I read the back and wondered if it would read as two separate stories on the inside of the book. Who is the intended audience? It is an action-adventure novel with a lot of specific gun talk and people shooting at each other, but your main character is a banker lady. I doubt there are many banker ladies who are into guns and shooting people in a big way on the side, or even in their fantasies. The villain banker man is not only a gun shooting fancier, but has a taste for torture. This character is also not believable, but perhaps some bank tellers out there could picture their tyrant boss while they read this. I can see a bank teller being interested in a landscape artist, who is the other main character, hero / love interest. But I can't picture a landscape artist as a sharp-shooting, gun-savvy hero in the story. The book reads as though it was intended for men, but the main character is the bank teller woman, and no man would find this book interesting. The title is stupid. The cover art doesn't make sense and isn't attractive. The chapters were good and short. Well, short. I have learnt that in order to write a BSing novel, one must use sardonically in the novel at least once. It seems to be a sort of rite of passage. There should have been less details about the bank teller in this novel. My guess is the novel was written initially to interest bank teller types, but after having written a lot about Kayla Shaw, the author realized that angle was boring, and no woman would pick up the book, let alone finish it. Who knows? I know this novel didn't work at all. Not only would exactly 0 men read this, but I doubt many women bothered to get through it. I was desperate for something to read and pull my mind away from the global pandemic, and barely made it through to the end of this work of crap. Also, the sex scenes were boring. So when I read this, I was like, what is she doing? And then I started reading, I think this one next, and I was like, oh, she's trying to imitate James Patterson. So, and my guess is she had 2 stories that she was working on. She was like, how can I put these together? Well, as you'll see when I read my reviews of these ones, James Patterson does that all the time. He'll put down 2 stories together, and he works in conjunction with other people, so it's a bit of a collaboration, and sometimes it works out. I don't know so much. Anyway, so this one I'm going to talk about, Honeymoon. An ad for Ben & Jerry's Cherry Garcia on page 23. Peppermint Lifesavers ad, page 122. This is a good read. It's smooth and interesting. The characters are well crafted, identifiable. There's a major plot flaw on page 280. She calls the insurance company and asks for John O'Hara. How can she know that his first name is John? The mailbox said O'Hara, but she could not have known his first name at that point. The author should have written her asking for Mr. O'Hara, and then the receptionist say that John was presently out traveling, even though I doubt any receptionist would be so personal as to offer a client an agent's first name over the phone. Still, it's far better than having Nora somehow manifest his first name out of thin air. An ad for a supersized Coke from McDonald's on page 343. I didn't care for the ending. The political angle was interesting, but I think it would have been more interesting if Nora was someone who'd uncovered the political thing and was not only helping herself to some funds, but cutting the flow of funds by her taste in men and how she cared for them. I thought.
So where was the ending set? Was it like in a Wendy's or something like that? So
How
he
am I
could work the
supposed to know? I
advertiser?
just told you I don't remember these books after I read them.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was funny to come across study questions at the end of this, and even funnier that this was made into a movie and the reader is asked to contemplate the soundtrack for Nora. So there's that one. James Patterson's Second Chance.
Not necessarily a second novel.
Entertaining enough, but I bet he'd wished he'd waited to publish this around Black Lives Matter time. If he's still alive, that is. I have no idea. There weren't too many ads in this one. I actually enjoy finding a few. I think Doritos and orange cream soda were in this one. I could do without the car and gun ads, but I guess this is aimed at the kind of audience that would really be into those things, so it makes sense. I really don't think there was enough explanation for the motives behind the Chimera's target/behavior at the end. There'd been so much build-up, and then it kind of fizzled. Oh well, I did like the red herring Chimera, even though it was obvious earlier than revealed. There's that. James Patterson's Private with Maxine Petro. I should have told you who the other ones were collaborated with, but whatever.
We'll find out soon.
Yeah.
As soon as they rush off to their nearest drugstore.
When you go,
and
yeah,
grab
or go grab it at the littlest library.
Yeah.
'Cause that's where these will be going.
That's where they're going.
Well,
'cause
Maxine
I'm not going to be
Petro
reading them.
Isn't a bad writer. Too many periods, not enough commas in dialogue bits, I
Oh my
think.
God.
She writes a better sex scene than James Patterson does. So I guess this is what famous writers do, subcontract the work to others. At least the subcontractors get their names on the covers. I wonder if Patterson did anything besides agree to put his name on the cover. Anyhow, the murderous gang was believable in the story. I don't know if the rest of the story was well crafted or believable. If Private is an investigation firm that discreetly works for the rich, famous, or powerful, why were they called in on this at all? Their involvement in this case really makes no sense to me. What's sexy about a PI firm? This helped me get through, it's written on the cover, it's the sexiest private investigation firm in the world. This helped me get through a winter day, yet reading these Patterson novels makes me feel guilty that I'm not doing something more useful with my time, like writing my own novels. This novel is like two failed novels combined to make one. NFL gambling scandal and gangster killers of teen girls. Yeah. Oh. So this one is The Fifth Horseman. I don't like the way Maxine Petro uses so many periods. Example, page 227. By the time I got to the malpractice suit, comma, he'd broken out the box of Krispy Kremes, period. Put a chocolate glazed on a napkin in front of me, period. It's terrible.
Is Krispy Kreme
I guess
proprietary term?
It must be an ad. Why not the creams and put a chocolate glaze?
Yeah.
I mean,